Well, today, the country sent a message. And it wasn't whispered, was it? It was roared. From Doncaster to Dover, thousands of everyday Brits stood up and said, enough is enough. This was the Great British National Strike. And despite the media blackout, despite the political snobbery, it happened, didn't it? From the north to the south. In towns, the media usually can't even pinpoint on a map these days. Thousands took to the streets, not activists, not ideologues, just proud Brits who desperately want their country back. They're demanding an end to illegal immigration, net zero, inheritance tax, political attacks on our farmers, a national inquiry into the rape gangs, and to put a stop on the endless attacks on free speech and the undeniable two-tier justice taking over this country. These are all sensible.
I'm going to be speaking about later.
Fixed-term Parliaments Act has been repealed, by the way.
Nothing really changes, isn't it? It doesn't matter who's been in power. It's a two-party system, and it's the same thing. People don't feel listened to. People don't feel heard. And I don't know why they keep doing it. Clearly, it's not working anymore. Like people have woken up and they're like, we want to be heard. But politicians are still trying to do business as usual. Yeah. We'll get away with it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm glad about reform. Not that I'm necessarily a reform voter in any way, shape, form. I haven't voted in absolutely ages, but I love the fact that they're actually shaking things up and having people think for themselves. Right. So now they have to listen to ordinary people.
Keir Starmer is in trouble, and not just with Parliament. For the first time since Labour's return to power, public anger has spilled past the usual talking heads and social media echo chambers. It hit the streets in force. This wasn't a flash protest or a Twitter trend, it was a tidal wave. Loud, unapologetic and impossible to ignore, thousands rallied across the country, not because a union told them to, but because they'd had enough. From northern towns to the south coast, everyday citizens, builders, teachers, pensioners, shop workers marched in defiance of a government they believe no longer speaks for them. And Starmer, he vanished. As images of placards and police lines flooded online, there was no speech, no press conference, not even a tweet. The man who promised stability and vision was nowhere to be seen. For many, that silence spoke louder than any statement could. It confirmed what critics had warned all along. The Labour leadership is out of touch, and dangerously so. This was the moment the mask cracked. The illusion of a People's Party shattered in the face of raw, unfiltered...
Turning point. A polite, rule-abiding, patriotic people finally losing patience with a political class that's taken them for fools for far too long. The message is crystal clear. The working classes have had enough of voting for change and getting continuity instead. And I think the political elite should be worried. And talking of political...
public rage. These weren't paid activists or campaign operatives. There were no flashy slogans or corporate logos. What marched through Doncaster, Dover and dozens of other towns was a reflection of the real Britain. Unfiltered and fed up. These were the people who've kept the country running through every crisis. The nurses who worked double shifts during the pandemic. The lorry drivers who kept shelves stocked. The pensioners watching their savings disappear, and the farmers battling red tape just to stay afloat. Their demands weren't radical. They weren't even partisan. They were the kind of demands you'd expect any common-sense government to address without hesitation. Secure the borders, end double standards in justice, stop punishing workers in the name of green ideology, and investigate long-ignored scandals that have left entire communities scarred. They wanted fairness, honesty and accountability, basic principles that...
Ordinary folk, these should be your core Labour voters. Yeah. These are the people you should be talking to, and they're out saying they've already had enough of your government. It's only been 10 months.
But where does that lead, Alex, right? Because this week actually marked a year since Rishi Sunak stood out there in the rain, who could forget, sodden, and announced the general election last year. Now, we had an incredible landslide for the Labour Party, and we have a thing in this country called the Fixed-Term Parliament Act, which means that we have 5 years, the Labour Party has 5 years to deliver on some of the difficult promises it's made. Now, if we decide that suddenly by dint of polling or by public opinion, government should be cast out after 1 year, then that leads to some odd places.
Government, hang on. Your government has gone back on almost every single one of its manifesto pledges.
That's not true.
It's U-turning like a car going 90 miles an hour down a motorway that needs to get back the other way.
That's not true.
Trey, listen,
Once defined British politics. But to the current establishment, those demands are viewed as inconvenient, or worse, dangerous. Starmer's party, instead of engaging, dismissed them outright. That move backfired. It didn't silence anyone, it only poured fuel on the fire. And now, the people who were once ignored have become impossible to overlook. What's most alarming for the Labour leadership isn't the size of the protests, it's the clarity of the message. For years, political frustration simmered quietly behind closed doors, but now it's boiling over in public, and it's no longer limited to fringe groups or anonymous online rants. These protests cut across generations and regions. The message is unified. Britain isn't just divided, it's rigged. While Labour talks reform,
common sense, Blake, you're one of what I would say many just ordinary people in the country. How do you feel? Do you feel this is continuity previous government?
Yeah, it is. It's all the same. That's literally what I'm going to be speaking about later.
Fixed Term Parliaments Act has been repealed by them.
Nothing really changes, isn't it? It doesn't matter who's been in power. It's a two-party system, and it's the same thing. People don't feel listened to. People don't feel heard. And I don't know why they keep doing it. Clearly, it's not working anymore. Like people have woken up and they're like, we want to be heard. But politicians are still trying to do business as usual.
Yeah.
We'll get away with it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm glad about reform. Not that I'm necessarily a reform voter in any way, shape, form. I haven't voted in absolutely ages, but I love the fact that they're actually shaking things up and having people think for themselves. Right. So now they have to listen to ordinary people.
They've governed with retreat. Promises to protect pensions have already been rolled back. Support for British farmers was quietly downgraded. Free speech, once a central pledge, now seems conditional on political convenience. And when it comes to grooming gang victims, the silence from official channels has become deafening. That betrayal is what's really igniting the fury. The public isn't asking for miracles, they're asking for the basics. Equal rights, equal rules, a government that remembers who it works for. Instead, what they're getting is deflection, excuses, and a deafening absence of leadership. That's why the frustration is metastasizing into something bigger than just a protest. It's becoming a reckoning. With every broken promise, the sense of betrayal deepens. In just 10 months, Labour has abandoned nearly every core commitment that brought them to power. Planning reform scrapped, immigration control sidelined, policies on free expression quietly reversed, and in their place, more red tape, more virtue signalling, more centralised control. The working class, the very group Starmer once claimed to champion, has been pushed to the margins once again. And the mood on the streets reflects it.
Look, come on, we've got to say the Labour government have got in on a lie. They've lied and lied and lied. They haven't told the truth. They were going to say they were going to be the party without the cronyism. And then, we had Freebie-gate. We had all of that with Lord Ali. There's been one thing after another. They didn't tell us about the pensioners, what they were going to do. They didn't tell us what they were going to do to the farmers. And that's why if you were to come to my local pub and listen to real working people who are being affected by this government, they are a disgrace, and I'm afraid they've lied to us. And they only got into power, you have to admit, because the Tory party was such a disaster.
OK, Alexander.
This isn't just protest, it's fury. Real, boiling over anger from people who feel used, then discarded. A Reform UK councillor summed it up with brutal accuracy. The system is broken beyond party lines. What we're witnessing isn't just a rejection of Labour. It's a revolt against a political machine that keeps rotating faces while ignoring the rot underneath. New slogans, same betrayals. The political elite hoped that by managing appearances, they could keep the public pacified. But they've underestimated just how wide awake people have become. And now, with every march, chant and banner, that awakening is turning into a movement, not of blind ideology, but of broken trust. Starmer's disappearance didn't go unnoticed, it defined the moment. No public address, no attempt to stand among the people who once put their faith in him. And that silence? It wasn't seen as strategy, it was seen as surrender. He left a vacuum, and into that vacuum stepped a wave of disillusionment that now threatens to rewrite the political map. In places like Doncaster and Dover, the mood wasn't just angry, it was energized. People who hadn't voted in years spoke of finally feeling heard. Reform UK, once dismissed as a protest vote, has transformed into a serious political threat. Their rise isn't about celebrity candidates or flashy campaigns. It's about resonance. They're voicing the frustrations that Labour no longer dares to acknowledge. The irony, Labour thought it had years to reshape the country. Now it's struggling to hold on month by month. The protests have shifted the conversation. The old political script isn't working anymore, and Starmer's retreat only confirmed what many feared. When confronted with the people's voice, this government hides. There's a quiet panic spreading through Labour HQ, and for good reason. The shift in public mood isn't a blip, it's a turning tide. For years, the major parties have relied on voter apathy and tribal loyalty to maintain control. But now, that apathy is collapsing. People are no longer settling for the lesser evil. They're looking for anyone, who will tell the truth, however uncomfortable. That's where Reform UK has found its footing, not by making grand promises, but by addressing the uncomfortable realities that others tiptoe around. Immigration, rural neglect, judicial double standards.
I always planned to do, and this is what we're getting on with the job of governing. Your party, the Reform Party, is speeding ahead in the polls. No experience governing, though. Do you think it'll be a car crash for Reform on the general election tomorrow with no political experience? Would this similar continuity end up happening? Because the bureaucracy would just take over, wouldn't it?
I would say absolutely not. I think we're electing real, normal, genuine people who people can trust, and that's why we're surging in the polls at the moment. It's nice you mentioned Doncaster on there as well, because I know the good people of Doncaster, and I know that, frankly, most of them are fed up, hence why we voted in a majority in my hometown as well. Almost
got the mails here, almost. Kai?
I think we do live in a world, right, at the minute, especially with social media and the increasing media cycle, where opinions are changed very quickly, right? This happened in 2019 when the Conservatives...
Issues that cut deep into daily life but rarely make it past the political filter. In town halls, community centres and radio phone-ins, voters are voicing a new kind of support, not just for policy, but for principle. Starmer, once seen as a safe pair of hands, now looks out of his depth. Floating Angela Rayner as a possible alternative hasn't helped either. To many, it feels like a distraction tactic. Rayner's working-class credentials may be front and centre, but the policies she supports echo the same centralised control, high taxation and green dogma that are already being rejected on the streets. Labour is facing a problem it can't spin away. It's stopped listening, and the people who once gave them the benefit of the doubt are walking away, angrily, loudly, and in growing numbers. They're not just voting with their feet, they're voting with their voices. Reform UK isn't rising because it's perfect, it's rising because it's present, because it's acknowledging what millions have felt but been too exhausted or disillusioned to say. This isn't about left or right anymore, it's about trust. It's about whether ordinary people feel like they still matter in the country they help build. Right now, the answer to that question is clear, and it's fueling a quiet. Political frustration simmered quietly behind closed doors, but now it's boiling over in public, and it's no longer limited to fringe groups or anonymous online rants. These protests cut across generations and regions. The message is unified. Britain. Instead, what they're getting is deflection, excuses, and a deafening absence of leadership. That's why the frustration is metastasizing into something bigger than just a protest. It's becoming a reckoning. With every broken promise, the sense of betrayal deepens. In just 10 months, Labour has abandoned nearly every core commitment that brought them to power. Planning reform scrapped, immigration control sidelined, policies on free expression quietly reversed, and in their place, more red tape, more virtue signalling, more centralised control.
Over and done with?
Yes.
I'm arguing today that Angela Rayner is the Prime Minister this country desperately needs. Now, Angela Rayner wouldn't just ruffle feathers, she would upend the staid, aristocratic norms of Westminster politics. Let me remind you a bit of a British record. Oxford, 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 Oxford. Edinburgh, Oxford, none, Oxford, none, Oxford, 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 Oxford. Yes, that's the university education of some of our most recent prime ministers. Now, Angela Rayner was raised in poverty. She was a mum and a carer at 16 and in a union position at 30, a senior union position. Now, if she walks into 10 Downing Street, she won't as much bring working class grit and guts as put paid to the Farage fallacy that only reform can represent the working class. Now, her experience as a minister also shows her record, spearheading 1.5 million homes, her planning and infrastructure bill, and also the incredible employment rights given to workers, the best in a generation. So yes, the red-haired bombshell is the Prime Minister we next need. After Keir Starmer, of course, I should say.
Oh, there it is, isn't it? There it is. This is what...
Revolution. Keir Starmer should have been out front, speaking directly to the anger instead of dodging it. He had a moment to show leadership. Instead, he showed fear. And that's why these protests matter, because they've become more than a cry for policy change. They're a warning, one that Westminster ignores at its own risk. If you enjoy this breakdown, like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and watch many more videos here.